Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drum. I got Parker Thune. I got Spencer Forsythe on the board. Hey, today was a precursor to spring football. It is almost football time in Oklahoma again.
There
And
was
that
a lot
means,
happening today.
oh my gosh, like we were scrambling, rambling. We got, what'd you say? You got 35 interviews
We
up?
got 35 newcomers all in the span of about an hour and a half. Folks, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, your notifications were going bonkers this afternoon. And that's because it will probably be the single biggest day in terms of content output in the history of our YouTube channel, because we got interviews shot and posted with darn near everybody. We lost a couple because Brandon's camera had some audio issues that we were working through. But I want to say we got 31, 32 of the 35. So almost batted 1,000. Almost. But got to talk to every single newcomer, both transfer and early enrollee true freshmen in the Oklahoma program today. And not just scholarship guys, right? We got Liam Evans. We got Tyler Keltner, the kickers. Walk-on wide receiver Jacob Jordan is an early enrollee as well, and a guy that has turned some heads, certainly. So got to catch up with him as well. All of those interviews are posted on the OU Insider YouTube channel. If there's a guy in particular that you want to hear from, again, overwhelming odds are we have an interview posted with him, whether that's David Stone or Joselyn Molaska or Eli Bowen, whatever interest you take in one of the Sooners newcomers, you'll be able to hear directly from them in one of those interview sessions. Jake Roberts was awesome to talk to today. Michael Boganowski was awesome to talk to. A lot of these interviews were a ton of fun. Obviously, Daniel Akinkunmi is as good of an interview as you're going to get, period. Regardless of what day it is, what the circumstances are. So awesome day of content that will no doubt carry us for several weeks as far as stories are concerned.
Oh my gosh. So okay, let's do we have a ad read that we need to take care of first?
Yes, we do. Thanks for reminding me. We should probably get that taken care of. I guess I'm going to attempt the Irish accent again. Top of the morning to you. This episode is brought to you by the St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers, Manscaped. This year, don't just chase rainbows, folks. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun with the leaders in below the kilt care. Say goodbye to your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and, of course, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This trimmer comes with two interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads. It's equipped with dual LED spotlights so you can navigate your shamrock patch in peace. And if you're worried you'll make a mess, well, fear not. This wonder is waterproof. Shave by the misty moors, under a waterfall, or even during a rain dance. And its compact case makes it an ideal companion ready for any adventure or last-minute plans. Trimming the hedges in your Irish garden isn't just for below the belt either. Complete your look with Manscaped's signature Beard Hedger Pro Kit and the Handyman Electric Face Shaver. You can get 20% off and free shipping with code INSIDER at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code INSIDER at manscaped.com. This St. Patrick's Day, make sure your little hairy leprechaun is luckier than ever with Manscaped.
Yeah, there was zero chance I was getting through that little hairy leprechaun part.
You're welcome.
Zero chance. Thank you. I don't know one how one does that and keeps a straight face. So anyway, all right, Parker, let's talk about it. Venables got up there today. He talked about a plethora of things, which I think more importantly, I think the biggest story is Justin Harrington being cleared.
Yeah,
I don't think that's even a question.
Again, it was something that was very much expected. It
Right.
would have been a travesty of epic proportions if Justin Harrington hadn't gotten this waiver approved. But uh, we were kind of in a holding pattern, just waiting for it to become official, and it became official this morning. Brent Venables let us know about it this afternoon. Justin Harrington is back next season for what will be his 5th year in an Oklahoma uniform and his 7th year of college football. I believe, well, no, Phil Paya was the first 7th-year senior in the history of the program. Otherwise, Justin Harrington would be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sooners get him back for 2024. I think that's huge, not necessarily because there's a lot riding on his status, but just because that's another freakishly athletic dude that you can throw into the fire who's got some positional and scheme versatility, a chess piece, if you will,
Right.
that you can move around as your heart desires in the defensive scheme for Brent Venables and Zach Alley. So it'll be fun to have him back. He'll certainly be an asset. I mean, he broke camp last year as Oklahoma's starting cheetah, lest we forget. Picked off a pass against SMU
Mm-hmm.
before suffering that partially torn ACL that cost him the remainder of the season and will cost him the spring as well, is what it sounds like. I know he was hoping to get cleared in time for spring ball. Obviously, though, he's got one shot at this point, right? One last year, so it doesn't make any sense to rush it any faster than it absolutely has to go. And so you'd expect that when the fall rolls around, he'll be full tilt and he'll be competing for reps at that cheetah position, potentially at safety, maybe even at linebacker. Who knows? But the cheetah is kind of where he's made his niche throughout his first couple of years in Venables defense, and you'd expect that that will be the case at least primarily for him going forward.
Yeah. So, all right. He is going to play cheetah. That I think that's all guaranteed. And I thought I just don't understand why it took so long. Like we all expected it to happen, but why it's taking so long, or it took so long to get that approval, is crazy. Because you know Bowman up in Stillwater was like 50, and he still got another year of eligibility, and it was like that. Like it was so fast. I think he got it even before the bowl game, or it was directly after the bowl game that he got it approved. So I don't understand the NCAA. I'll never understand the NCAA. But the good news is that Oklahoma has a player, and we don't know what he's going to be physically, right? Like it took him a year to come back from his last ACL, right? So we don't know what he's going to be physically this season, but what we do know is before he got injured, he was playing at an all Big 12 level. Like he was playing phenomenal at that point. And it was a shame. It was a big hit. Remember how big a hit it was when it first happened? Like that was big news that he was out. Everybody thought, oh, well, Deshaun McCullough. And then you got to see Deshaun McCullough was very limited. What Justin Harrington provided you was a guy that can cover in space, and he can tackle and fill run fits downhill. He is kind of a triple threat in what he provides you at that cheetah spot. Whereas Kendall Dolby is good at covering in space. He's good at run fits. He's great at coverage. Deshaun McCullough is good at blitzing. He's good at run fits. He's okay in coverage. Okay. Harrington provided you a guy that you got all that in one. And is he going to be that guy? It's great news that he's back, but is he going to be that guy again? I mean, how much confidence, Parker, do you have that he can be that guy who he was before he got injured?
Well, it's kind of the perpetual question, right? Whenever you have a guy that deals with a major injury, what's he going to look like on the other side? And there's never any telling, right? It's a complete shot in the dark. You just got to wait and you got to see what it actually looks like.
Mm-hmm.
There's no projecting that. Adrian Peterson, we know he's a freak of nature, and he was enough of a freak of nature that not only did he recover from a torn ACL in 8 months, but he ran for 2,000 yards 8 months after tearing an ACL. So
Right.
get a guy like that who can just blow the recovery timetable out of the water. But then there are certainly other guys And I think, unfortunately, Austin Stogner kind of falls in this category with the bout of uh, sepsis that he dealt with in 2020. You go through something like that, and you're just never the same. And so it can go one of two ways, or you can fall somewhere in the middle, right? You can
Yeah.
be close to as good as you were before, but not quite. It can take its toll, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to say what Harrington looks like, what Caden Helms looks like. These guys that have dealt with long term injuries that have kept them sidelined for months upon months at a time and made the rehab process very slow and arduous. We hope the best for them, right? You wish the best
Mm-hmm.
for any guy that deals with something like that, but you just don't know until you see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. So outside of that, was there anything that really stood out to with anything that Venables brought up that was just something we hadn't discussed, something that maybe would be a good topic of discussion? Because when I look back at it and I sit here and I think about everything you discussed, I think maybe everything that he said about the D line, I thought with particularly the young D lineman David Stone and Jaden Jackson, it basically confirmed everything that we talked about, right?
I,
For Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, thinking back on some of the more memorable things that Venables said, I think he made a really good point with regard to Jackson Arnold, which is, look, obviously he's talented. Obviously, we know what he's capable of. But if he has great success in 2024, it's also going to be due to the fact that he has an outstanding supporting cast around them. And
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have to be firing on all cylinders if he's going to have the type of success that we need him to have. And it's good to hear it. It's encouraging to hear your head coach not putting it all on the quarterback's shoulders, right? And kind of
Right.
relieving some of that public pressure, saying, hey, look,
Mm-hmm.
obviously Arnold's the quarterback. He's our guy, but make sure you're mindful of the fact that we got Deion Burks in the fold, and Andrell Anthony in the fold, and Jalil Farouk, and Brendan Thompson, and Jaden Gibson, and Nick Anderson, the wide receiver room, Gavin Sawchuk, and Javante Barnes and Sam Franklin in the backfield. And those guys are what's going to help make Jackson Arnold great in this offense because he's good. He's a good player. But
Yeah.
what will make him great within the context of the Oklahoma offense is what those guys do when they get the ball in their hands. Because once Jackson Arnold throws the pass, once the pass leaves his hands, right, at that point, it's out of his control. Whatever happens from there on out entirely hinges on what the guy on the receiving end of that pass does. And so I like the way Brent Venables approached the answer to that question, not going into the spring by laying the weight of the world on the shoulders of his first year quarterback and making
Yeah.
sure everybody sees the complete picture.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'm trying to think of something else that really stood out to me. Man, you know what, the wide receiver, the talks of the wide receivers, I thought was really, really interesting. He brought up, I'm trying to think, it may have been Dion Burks, where he said something like he may be the most competitive guy that they have in that room. And I'd have to go back. I tweeted the quote out, and let me go back and find it real quick. And I thought it really kind of stood out as something that, oh, here it is. Here's what he said about it was Jalil Farouk. First off,
Oh yeah,
I thought that just blew my ever loving mind because not only did he talk up Jalil Farouk, but he called him one of the best players on the whole team.
which is exactly what you want to hear, Brandon.
Yes.
The two wide receivers that he went out of his way to shout out are the two wide receivers that you probably wanted to hear shouted out if you're an Oklahoma fan because you know what Nick Anderson brings. Uh, you know what uh, Andrell
Jaden
Anthony brings.
Gibson, Andrew Anthony, yeah.
Yeah, I'd lost my train of thought there for a second. You know what Deion Burks brings to the table.
Well,
Uh,
he brought up Dion Burks, which I thought was
yeah, yeah,
interesting.
and you expect that those three guys are going to be key part of the rotation offensively, but Jalil Farouk is a guy that I don't know if we've talked enough about. And, he fumbled a couple times in the bowl game, and
Yeah, I think that
he's
hangs over him. I think
I
that's
think
the
it
issue.
does. I think
Yeah,
that's affected the perception of Farouk as we've kind of turned the page to the off
'cause
season.
he's
Is
really good.
people aren't necessarily writing him off; they're not disregarding him. But I don't know that he's getting his due in
No,
that conversation alongside the other guys for the playmaker that he is and has been in this offense.
no, he has not. I think everybody looks at those two fumbles and they're like, dude, like, and I guess the fumble, I can't remember. It may have been Kansas. He fumbled, I believe. Yeah, because he played running back. He got a handoff and he fumbled on that run, and then so he had three big fumbles. And he had that big drop against Oklahoma State on the fly route. But outside of that, he made some really big time competitive catches. He was one of the key cogs. Him and Drake Stoops are the reason why Nick Anderson even got that pass down in the corner against Texas, because Drake Stoops and Jalil Farouk caught multiple passes on that final drive and made moves to extend that drive, by the way. And so you I think the negatives by human nature always outweigh the positives, right? And that's what you remember more than, unless you're Michael Jordan or a Heisman winner, you're Kyler, you're Baker. Most people remember they're good more so than they're bad because they did so much good. Whereas Jalil Farouk did a lot of good, but the bad plays that he made were just so glaringly bad that they get magnified, and so that's what everybody remembers. So for Brent Venables to come out of his way and say he's one of the best players. You'd love to see how hard he's working. He's just gone out of his way to be a leader. He's changed his whole mentality. That was huge. I perked up when I heard that. I was like, "Well, what? Come again now?" Because uh, we've been talking about the wide receiver unit, and you know that we always talk about Jalil Farouk like down in like the second tier, and the reality, he's probably first tier. Like no matter how
But
you slice it.
but I think that in itself is what's so encouraging about the state of Oklahoma's wide receiver room is you have a guy who's been a 2-year starter in Jalil Farouk, and he's not guaranteed a starting spot next year.
No, he's
I
not.
mean,
But
you're right. He's probably first year, but he's not definitely first year.
right.
There are 6, 7 guys in that wide receiver room that are first tier material, but there are only 3 dudes that can make up the first tier.
Right. Well, and I think another thing that we're probably should have been the first and foremost is that Miss Julie, cancer free. How awesome is that?
Yes,
Good for her.
congratulations.
It's amazing. Freaking amazing. So, I mean that that to me that probably was the top story. If we're
I
gonna
mean,
be
that's
honest,
that's the
like
most meaningful thing we learned today, no
yes, it
doubt.
was. Yeah, by far. By far. I, so during the scrum, and I think coming from me, it doesn't. People probably don't believe it, but I challenge everybody to go watch Casey Thompson interviews. Go watch them. Fan freaking tastic. He was awesome. Parker, he brought up. Well, I asked him. I said, the biggest story right now is the fact that his former teammate ran a 4.21, right? And so I asked. I said, compare the two, Brennan Thompson and him. And he was like, okay. And so he walked through it. He goes, well, everybody always asks me to do that. And it's like, so what's it like to throw to this guy or this guy or that guy? He says, my parents, my dad, he says, my dad, who's a quarterback, my brother who's a quarterback. They always ask me like, who's faster to throw to? This guy or this guy, this guy or that guy. He goes, so it's really hard for me to say. Uh, and my question was, does Brennan Thompson in game speed stack up? And I just I don't know. He just gave some compelling answers. He gave a really good answer on, you know, not only the Xavier Worthy deal, but I asked him, he talked about, playing for Texas and coming back to Oklahoma, and always not wearing Texas gear as he's walking through the Will Rogers Airport because you see all this OU stuff everywhere, and he never wanted to draw attention to himself. And he said he would go home and he would see Switzer and Bob Stoops and Jamel Holloway and like all this memorabilia up in his dad's, you know, whatever the man cave room, whatever he had. And he talked about just what an honor it was to finally be where he grew up, the place he always wanted to play, and it just never really worked out, whether it was timing, whether it was feeling, whether it was just numerous things. And so I asked him, I said, so what would it mean for you to be on a team like this the last year? You're at Oklahoma and to go to the playoffs. And he sat there and he goes, you know what? Oklahoma is always there. He goes, but I'll be honest, like you said, like for me, like it would be a dream come true. Like it would be full circle dream come true type deal. He goes, but we got a lot of work to do. Again, I don't want to quote him. I don't want to misquote him. I just go watch him because I turned to Mike Halk and I said, that guy right there is fantastic to interview. And he goes, yes, like phenomenal. So, um, I just challenge everybody to go watch him. That just really stood out to me. And I think the other thing, Parker, that stood out to me was I went around and asked guys like what they showed up weighing and what they weigh now, right? Because you wanted to see kind of the difference. Did you know that Xavier Robinson showed up weighing almost 150 or 250 pounds and he's down to 228? He may have been over. I think he may have said 254 and now he's 228. He looked unbelievable. Did you see him when he stood up? Like he is just yoked out and he looks good, trimmed up,
I
yoked
well,
out,
and
ridiculous.
and I guess what I can say about X is that out of the corner of my eye, I was looking over and I didn't realize that was him. You know, there's 20 different guys in the room, and so I only see the back of his head. And I mistook him for a defensive back. I was like, oh, that's one of the safeties. That just completely clued out to the fact that we were
Mm-hmm.
talking to all the offensive guys. I was like, oh, is that one of the safe? Oh, no, it's Xavier Robinson. So yeah, he's
Right.
trimmed up. He looks good, and he's one of the few that has lost weight since he got to campus. A
Yeah.
lot of guys have packed on a ton of good muscle, and
Oh,
not
Danny
just the big
Okoye,
boys. Yeah, Danny Okoye looks
20 pounds of
huge.
muscle. He's packed on
Holy
22.
smokes.
He's up to 255 and as only Danny Okoye can do, and you'd have to go watch it on our OU Insider YouTube page. Just straight cold face, 255, and I ran a 456. What? You're a freak, dude. And I asked him, I said, so what who do you lean on right now? Who do you think the person he leans on? Who fits him the most? Like who understands him the most as far as edge rushers go? Parker, like who understands him the most? Like if you're going to lean on somebody that's been there, they have a big brother program. Who do you think they chose for Danny Okoye's big brother? This is so easy.
Danny Okoye's big.
255 and runs a 456. I'm saying those numbers because I'm trying to help you out here.
255. 456. Danny Okoye's
The
big.
Big Brother program, who he said is the only person that understands him and what he's saying because they have the exact same game.
Exact same game.
Sooner Cowboys got it.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay, who is it? Who am I missing?
PJ Adebawore.
Oh, really? What?
Yeah.
255. I don't think PJ's gotten there yet. That's what threw me off. But no, that does
Well,
make sense.
I'm talking like just their game and running a 4.5 that type of deal because that's right up PJ's alley. So just freakishly athletic edge rusher. He's like, that is the only guy that understands me. Like when I start talking about things and I start having questions, he's the only one that really understands what I'm talking about because we play the exact same game. And he's I think I almost quoted him verbatim right there. So um I thought that interests me, and I also thought that Jaden Jackson. So Jaden Jackson said he came in weighing 280, 285, and now he's 297. And they want him to get up to 300. He said he's gonna beat that easy. And then with a sly look on his face, somebody else was asking a question, and he stopped in the middle of the question. He turns and looks at me. He goes, "I kind of lucked out that they're asking me to gain weight because I do that really easy. If it would have been losing weight, I'd have been screwed." So I thought that was really funny. Anyways, the guys you talked to today, what stood out to you?
I'll say this, man. Joselyn Molaska has morphed into a really, really impressive human being. And, when I met him when he was a junior in high school, he was a junior in high school, right? And as a reporter, I think your awareness to this type of thing is heightened, right? As to what kind of persona that they carry. And he was still maybe a little bit awkward, evasive with his eye contact, just not the most natural in conversation. Well, here
Mm-hmm.
he is going on year 3 of college, year 1 at Oklahoma, and just pleasant look on his face, looks you straight in the eye, gives you genuine answers, and just generally a very engaging person to interact with. And moreover,
Right.
he the impression I got from talking to him today is that that's a guy that is very motivated, taking nothing for granted, and just feels blessed to be back home in the state of Oklahoma and at the University of Oklahoma. By the way, pick this up from talking to a couple other sources externally. I should say not Jocelyn when I say externally, but he has tested really well,
I've heard that. Yep.
like elite
Yep.
relative to the rest of the
I was
position.
told he was the fastest corner that tested. Is that
Yeah,
true?
well,
Is that what you heard too?
it wasn't just speed where he bested everybody. I'll tell you that much. So
Mhm.
like athletically, and it's been this way for that dude. He has superior athleticism.
Yeah.
He had a shoulder
Gentry
injury.
did not test, just so everybody knows. So that's probably why. But that doesn't undermine what he accomplished, by the way. But
Now, he had a shoulder injury at Utah, had to undergo surgery. That kind of derailed things for him in the early goings. And so is the fact that he kind of fell out of love with the situation at Utah completely? I mean, can you completely just pin that on the shoulder injury and nothing more? Maybe not. But even so, you undergo some adversity at a place that's far from home. It's not the easiest thing in the world to deal with. And he just seems very, very comfortable with the OU on his chest. And I mean, he said it to me. He was very candid. He was like, "Look, this is where I feel like I should have been all along." And
yeah,
he dominated the camp back in June of 21, thought he was going to
he
get the
did.
OU offer and didn't end up with it, committed to Tech, end up flipping to Utah right before National Signing Day, spends 2 years as a Ute, and now here he is as a preferred walk-on, mind you, in a very, very deep group of cornerbacks. So he's going to have to fight tooth and nail, and he understands that. Going to have to fight
Mhm.
tooth and nail for every opportunity that he gets, but really, really excited for him to see what might happen this year in 2024 because he's got experience, maybe not as much of it as you would like, but he's got experience. And again, has superior athleticism.
Alex Grinch is a super nice guy, but I think I'll never forget. And Parker, I think you were working with me, and I remember I told you this at the camp. Yeah, I think you know exactly where I'm going with this. And Alex Grinch walks over to me at the camp, and he goes, "What do you think of this Molaska guy?" And I was like, "I think you should offer him." And he goes, "Yeah, I just don't know." I'm like, "He's 6'2". He ran a 4.5 40 that y'all just tested him at, and he's covering everybody. Like he is locking down dudes. And I mean, Jordan Johnson Rebel was at that camp. All those top guys were at the camp, and he was outshining all of those guys. And I remember Micah Tees did both. He did corner and he did wide receiver. And when he played wide receiver, Molaska covered him and covered him like glue. And I remember you and I both walked away from that going, there's no way he's not going to get offered, right? And I turned to you and I was like, I don't think they're going to offer him though, dude. Like the sense I got from Grinch was it's not going to happen.
Man,
And so it just was such a weird deal.
it's an
I'm glad he's
enduring
in Norman. He deserves it.
yeah, it's an enduring memory for me because
Yep.
this was I mean, this was right at this was the very first team camp since COVID, right? And so we were all just excited to be out there again. And of course, at the time, Garrett Riley was the OC at SMU, and Lincoln's his brother, of course. The two staffs there are the OU staff and the SMU staff. And
Yep.
I ran down, I watched Joselyn take a couple of reps, and I run down SMU's secondary coach. For the life of me, I can't remember what his name is or was. He's no longer their secondary coach. Obviously, there's been some staff turnover there, but went and ran him down and pointed out Joselyn and said, "Here, watch this next rep he takes." And he watches it, lockdown coverage once again, as it was all day that day. He turns to me and goes, "Thanks, man. I got to go talk to this kid." Joselyn got the SMU offer that day, suffice,
Good for him.
along with several others within the next few days.
Right. Good for him. So outside of that, I mean, did you talk to, I'm trying to think of everybody you talked to. You talked to, Michael Hawkins,
Yep. Hawkins is, same customer. Nothing's changed with him. He's just focused on work. He's always been kind of a soft-spoken guy. Not going to give you too much, but it's very clear what he's about, and what he's about is getting his game better, being the best version
right?
of himself that he could be. Brendan Zerbrug, the other quarterback, found out he's gonna wear Drake Stoops number 12. So there you go. He told me that's the jersey number that he's picked out that hopefully he's going to be able to rock with for his whole collegiate career. He also said he's up from 192 to 204.
Yeah, he looked
So
good. Yep.
yeah, he's tacked on some good weight. Obviously, a step behind Hawkins at this juncture, just in terms of where he's at cognitively. Because look, Michael Hawkins played for Chad Morris as a sophomore in high school. That will accelerate your development. And so Zerbrug is a step behind Hawkins in that regard, but still, man, don't want people to forget about that kid because he's as hard a worker as they come and very, very gifted, and was a guy that, any of the pass catchers I talked to, they made sure they referenced Brendan Zerbrug. It wasn't just Jackson Arnold, wasn't just Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins, but Jake Roberts in particular was like, man, Jackson can spin it, but those two newcomers, Mike and Brendan, they can both really spin it too.
Right. Yeah, you want to know what the takeaway I came away from was that Gearin Hatchett looked like Lane Johnson. Did you see that? Like he looks like with the buzz head and like the beard look.
Okay, yeah, okay, yep, I see it now.
It kind of screwed with me there for a little bit. He was over there sitting, and I was like, "Who is that?" Because he's cut his hair. He used to have long hair. He's cut it. I was like, "This doesn't that no." Oh, it's Gearin. Okay, okay. I was totally screwed up there for a little bit, and I didn't get to go over and talk to him obviously because of the malfunction that I had. I had to go redo the interview with Casey Thompson, but um. Yeah, and he looked good, by the way. And I thought Nigel looks a little bit trim more than he did, but he he looked like he put on weight too at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I guess good weight, I guess would be the way to put that. So, um, I thought he looked good, and I talked to David Stone for about 7, 8, 9 minutes. And he came in weighing between 275, 280, and he said he's closer to 290 than he is 280 right now, which is the most he's ever weighed. And he's got it. He goes, I'm trying not to stress. He goes, the weight gain, we're all on our own little, track and how we're attacking that. And he goes, because I want to put on good weight. I don't want to put on bad weight. He goes, you can go and you can eat all sorts of crap and end up putting on weight. He goes, but I want to make sure it's the proper weight because
Yeah.
right now I weigh the most I've ever weighed, more than I ever did at IMG, and I'm moving better than I ever did at IMG on top of that. And he goes, it's super weird to think of that, but I like where I'm at, is where he said. So he goes, I want to stay on that course. He goes, I don't want to rush it. He goes, I have till September to get up to 300 or close to it. So I thought that was interesting, and that they're actually pushing for that type of weight gain with a guy that is already, around the 290 range and can be an inside outside guy that they feel that comfortable with his athleticism to put that much weight on him, knowing that he's going to be a 5 tech sometimes. He might line up in a 7 tech depending on the scheme and how they're trying to attack the opposing offense. So I, I I thought that was interesting. They all the D tackles they want weighing 300 plus. So I think the Oklahoma defensive line is going to look a little different than it's ever looked in the past decade plus. I can't remember there being multiple 300 pounders in a long time. Can you?
Well, no, that wasn't the Alex Grinch way. That's for sure.
No, that was 275, baby.
295 was the hard cap.
Right, right. So on top of that, there's also a lot of recruiting to talk about because you got the Future Freaks going on this weekend, the Junior Day in Norman. We've got a big list for you on OU Insider. We even covered some of that on the podcast that we dropped earlier this morning. So you'll have plenty of content if you want to listen to that, and obviously listen to this because you're listening to this right now. Um, but there's also the Under Armour camp. We haven't gotten the roster yet, but supposedly there's a ton of OU offers that are going to be there. 25, 26. And I know it coincides with OU's Junior Day being the day after OU's Junior Day. So from my understanding, the 26 guys and 27 guys like Taj Overton, Samash Stanford out of Jinx, like those type of guys I've heard are not going to be at the Under Armour. As a matter of fact, they've told me they're not because that would be a lot of driving from Tulsa down to Oklahoma City, then Tulsa, then back to Tulsa, then back down to Dallas the very next day. So they're not going to be able to make it. But I always look forward to that camp because there's so much talent there. And there's always a player or two, Parker, that we cross and we look at and we're like, well, OU's not in on them. OU doesn't have a chance. Terry Bussey last year, prime example. OU was not in that race at all at that point in time. We didn't even interview him because we didn't even think he was going to be
Oh,
worth
I
it.
actually I did interview him. I
Did
walked
you?
away going, yeah,
We didn't talk
ain't no
about
way
it.
this kid's going to
Yeah,
you.
we didn't report on it. And that's my point is we didn't. We
Yeah.
may have talked to him, but we don't report on it. It's like, yeah, there's no whatever. And then all of a sudden, OU's in on it later on down the line. So that's always fun. But the good news is that we get eyes on them, right? We get to talk to them. We get to introduce ourselves. So that's always a really fun deal. Um, and then obviously spring ball starting on the 11th. So like this next, I don't know, 3 weeks are going to be awesome because there's a lot of big 7-on-7. Not only is there Under Armour rivals camps, spring ball starting, 7-on-7s going on. Like we're going to be strung out everywhere, dude. It's going to be fun. So lots of content coming on OU Insider VIP. Um, with spring ball starting, what now that you've listened to Brent, now that you've listened to some of the newcomers, has your mind changed about anything that you've maybe been worried about, maybe have heard through sourcing? Like, was there anything that was brought to your attention today that maybe good or bad that maybe you think has changed your mindset towards anything team wise?
changed my mindset. I don't know about that. Um, I definitely, I guess I feel better about some individuals and some position groups based on what we heard today. I guess I, I'll say this. We already expected that Jaden Jackson was going to be a dude as soon as he got to campus. I'm not sure I was ready for how much positive buzz there was going to be on that guy because and Nigel Smith made a point of emphasizing to everybody, hey, that guy's good and
Right.
really, really strong. There were two guys from the trenches that Nigel made sure to give a lot of love to. And those guys were Jaden Jackson and Fabechi Nawawu. And those are both guys, Brandon, that members over at OUinsider.com know have been working their tails off and
Yeah.
turning heads in the winter workouts. And with Jaden Jackson being up to darn near 300 pounds, I mean, he'll be 300 by the time the fall rolls around. No question about that. He's already added almost 20 since he got to campus at OU. Man, it's fun to think about the possibilities for
Mhm.
him in this defense. And gosh, man, is there a world in which at some point in SEC play, you have David Stone at one defensive tackle spot and Jaden Jackson at the other defensive tackle spot, at least situationally, and you feel good about it?
I think so. I think everything that we heard when Brent Venables gets up there and starts, pounding his chest about how good those guys are, because he doesn't. Brent isn't one to give out participation trophies, and what I mean by that is he's not going to just, you know, rub baby lotion on your bottom and tell you it's okay when it's not. That's just not who he is. He's going to tell you the facts. He's going to tell you the truth. He doesn't live in a world of gray, So when he comes out and he's like, those guys are tough. And as a whole, he talked about the freshmen, which I thought was very, very, very interesting, beyond interesting to me, was when he talked about the freshmen and he said, I got to tell you, like the freshmen that are here now are tough. They're future leaders of this program already. You see everything that they can be, and they're going to compete for playing time. Like he talked to, and he meant it all across the board because he even said, I have not come across a freshman group that's been like this in a while. Like this group came in head down, grinding, and nothing broke them. He said, like you would try to break them, but you could not break them. And I thought that was just that's heady stuff coming from Brent Venables because he doesn't talk, in hyperboles at ever. It's a matter of fact with him. So I I really really think I think they're going to help OU win a lot of games this year. Like this freshman, particularly the defensive line, because that's where the whole thing started, right? Like they were asked, "What about David Stone and Jaden Jackson?" And then it turned into like, "Well, let me tell you something about this whole freshman class," and that was big. When you look at it and you go, "Okay, we're gonna pinpoint these two guys," and he was like, "No, no, 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 no." Like those guys are good. He did. He eventually talked to about them and pinpointed them in that conversation and talked about how good they were. But for like 3 minutes, he drowned on for ever about how great the class is as a whole. And then he started like naming guys like this guy, this guy, this guy. And so you're like, okay, they're going to be really good. And when was the last time Brent's come out and actually talked like that? I think is the question. Like himself, not an assistant coach. Brent come out and just like, bam, this guy's it. Peyton Bowen. We all know how good he was. Like when he says it, it happens, right? Because he doesn't talk BS. You see what I'm saying? Like, did that phrase when he started talking like that? Did that not kind of perk your ears up a little bit to like, whoa, okay, Didn't expect that. Like we've
I
heard
mean,
all that stuff about the freshmen, but to hear it coming from the head coach.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, he went out of his way to talk
Yep.
about how strong that group has looked collectively, and mentioned all 22, not by name, but he referenced the number
Right.
22, and that
Yep.
includes 20 scholarship guys, a kicker in Liam Evans, and a walk-on receiver in Jacob Jordan. And yeah, I mean, not difficult to tell that a lot of these guys are going to be able to play a role for Oklahoma from the jump. That's a fair expectation.
Yeah. Um, he talked about you brought up Fabici Nuewu, and he brought him up on several occasions. I still think that guy could have. I think you want a bold prediction right now. I think he's at least third team all conference. Like I could see him being second or first team at some point, but I think he's that good. If if he lives up to what Venables has said and what every source has told you and I about that guy, if he's not all conference, it's going to be a disappointment in my opinion. Are you not on that thinking
No, I'm
now?
with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it. Gosh,
So
Billy Bowman earned so much praise today among the
he
defensive
did.
backs. Like
Yep.
I don't know if I talked to a defensive back that didn't specifically mention Billy Bowman. And in most cases, I didn't go fishing for a Billy Bowman quote. I was
Right.
like, "Hey, tell me about Billy Bowman." I did it with a couple of guys once I started to notice a trend. But Billy Bowman was somebody whose name was brought up organically by a multiplicity of players, not just defensive backs either.
Yeah.
He's really taken on a leadership role, even more so than he already had this offseason for Oklahoma.
That was something that we talked about early. I think we brought it up on OU Insider probably about a month and a half ago, like right after the bowl game. They had their little exit interview stuff and they talked and they did all that. And then, Billy Bowman said he's going to come back, right before the bowl game, obviously. But I was talking to a source and it was this person was like, okay, Billy had been asking a bunch of the coaches like what the expectations were for him. Like, what do y'all want from me? Like he wanted to know what they wanted from him in 24. And across the board it was be a more vocal leader. And I was told like from the outset, from the jump of winter workouts, he has set the tone and he has been that guy that everybody looks to. Obviously, Danny Stutzman's vocal. He's always going to be that guy. He's going to be that leader. He's going to set the tone. He's going to be a hard worker. The two quiet guys that everybody talked about is Jackson Arnold and Billy Bowman. Like they're not the most outgoing guys. They're not the loudest guys. But when you talk to everybody on that team, those are the two guys everybody talks about. They're like those two have been vocal. They've led by not only their work ethic, but they've led by just their voice, like reassuring, like setting the tone when things aren't going right in the winter workouts. Those three are up there screaming and yelling at the team, like, "Get your crap together right now. We're not doing this. We're not going to lose 3 games. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that." Like I've heard that they have just been on it to the point where last year, remember the last year, the big deal was the players didn't like when people didn't line up their shoes right. They didn't line their shoes up right. They would make them run or do extra work for having it just a smidge out because they wanted attention to detail. And this was coming from the senior class. I've heard you can up that times 20 how strict they've been about things, the leaders on the team this year. Like they don't want to go into the SEC and flop it all. The expectation that they have is to go in and compete for the conference title, and that's the way they're attacking each and every day. Which, if you're a Sooners fan, that's reassuring to the big time. I thought the other thing was that Ethan Downs was brought up to me on multiple occasions, and R. Mason Thomas, which didn't really expect that because he didn't really do a whole lot last year because of his ankles, but I had three different linemen tell me that R. Mason Thomas has been just on it as far as leadership goes this winter. And Brent Venables got up there and he talked about how much he loves the leadership of this team, Parker. I think that was probably the biggest thing he talked about, right? Throughout the whole presser, he kept bringing up how good the leadership is on this team. So I think the expectations are getting set pretty high for this squad. I don't. I think the 7.5 on FanDuel is kind of being smirked at by a lot of people. Um, let's talk recruiting.
Okay.
How much do you make of Jonah Williams and him not having Oklahoma down for a visit? He's gonna visit OU this spring. I'm gonna just lay that out there. But how much stock do you put in that?
Well, Brandon, I'll tell you this much. That's why we didn't put in predictions for Jonah Williams.
Well, I guess you probably should expound on that. Like I went on our board and said, "Look, take this as my future cast," but I didn't publicly do it because was specifically
Yeah,
asked
because
not to,
it's less about where Oklahoma actually stands with Jonah Williams and more about
not pissing him off.
ramifications. If the public buzz between him and Oklahoma
Yeah.
started to get driven up. And kind
And
of
he
have the
did
same
not like
concern
that.
right now with, yeah, you kind of have the same concern right now with Ty Haywood, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Oklahoma's been in a good spot there for quite a while. And OU insider members have known that. But now that the predictions are flying,
Yeah.
makes you wonder, is it going to spook the kid or at the very least cause him to take a step back and kind of have a visceral reaction to all of the public smoke connecting him to Oklahoma. And that was kind of the concern with Jonah Williams.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that you don't see an Oklahoma visit on the schedule is because, well, he doesn't want people taking it as a given that he's
He's
going to
going to you.
Oklahoma. And
Is that a maturity thing? Like, it
sure,
has to be
yes, but
asked, and I think it is Parker, more or less, because people are going to say, well, then he's not that serious about OU. Well, that's not really the
yeah, well,
case.
no,
It has
he
more
is
to do with maturity than anything else, right? Like, let's just
and
call it what it
look, he's
is.
a 5-star, right? He's a
Yeah,
five
five
star,
stars.
and
I
he
got
is
one.
that serious about OU. Everybody
Yeah,
realizes it, but by the same token, when a kid feels like the shock value of his future announcement has been dampened to a certain extent, well, it's not out of the question that he will do exactly what Jonah Williams has done, which is schedule a bunch of other visits to kind of divert the attention in his recruitment and make it seem as if it's not an open and shut type of deal. And then the risk you run is, well, he shows up to one of these campuses and loves what he sees, or maybe they make him an offer he can't refuse, and then things get hairy again, right? Because as
Well,
we remember, Brandon, I was just talking about this
you
with
should
somebody else earlier
manscape if it
today.
gets hairy.
Oh boy, don't even go there. Um, at the party at the palace in July of 2022, David Hicks got up there in front of everybody and talked about his love for Oklahoma and why they were his school.
Oh
And
yeah.
those predictions started seeping in. And then before you know it, DJ Hicks is back at Texas A&M, and then he's back at Texas A&M again. And then on decision day, he pulls the Texas A&M hat, not the Oklahoma hat.
Mm-hmm.
And so these days, got to treat 5 stars with an extra measure of caution, both as a
Yeah.
reporter and as a fan, because things can go sideways very, very quickly. And something as seemingly insignificant as a prediction can go a long way in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, there are and we get mocked for doing that sometimes. Like we're not going to put a pick in, but take this as a. It's like, well, it's because you don't have the balls to put that pick in or whatever, and that's never the case. It's more or less one sources will literally tell us, Parker, you know this just as much as I do. Please do not put a pick in publicly. Like, please do not do it. Like, we do not want to spook the kid.
Gosh, the amount of times that we've heard that over the
Oh
years.
my God.
It happens more than folks realize.
Yeah. So, it and I know everybody that's listening more or less are adults and they look at it as, well, what's the big deal? It's a pick, whatever. Well, these kids, and I say this all the time, they've been working their whole lives for this opportunity. They want control of that. They want control of the narrative because they've worked their whole life for that opportunity. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big of a deal, but to them it is because when you're, and we all forget that being 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, life, a day is a big portion of life, right? Like, or a month or 2 or 3 months, right? Like, it means a lot. But when you're our age and our mid 20s to 40, like, it starts to, yeah, like, man, yeah, 2 months is nothing. 3 months is nothing. But to them, every day is meaningful and big and provides some sort of stake in their life. Whereas for us, it's just like an every other day thing. So you have to look at it like that. Like that's I try to put myself in the mindset, and luckily I have kids that are starting to become of that age that it helps me still remember that type of stuff sometimes. So yeah, it seems ridiculous that a pick, somebody putting in picks would deter a kid away from visiting Oklahoma or announcing the visit because he's gonna visit Oklahoma. Like, come on now, like he's going to go back to Oklahoma. So let's not overplay that hand at all. Somebody said it's always inside Texas that does that. Well, yes, and so could somebody be
I
playing?
didn't say it. You did.
Could somebody be playing a little chess there? A little chess to moving little chess pieces to kind of screw over the rival. I don't know. Could they? No, I'm kidding. I don't think they really would. But that's really some of the thoughts of some of the fans. Fasusi. I think we're gonna get to see him this weekend.
Really,
So
he's going to be there.
uh,
Love it.
that's what I hear, but we'll see. Um, so if he is there, I hope we can get some good conversation with him. I think Oklahoma is still in a really, really good spot for him. I happen to believe that he'll be back to Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, he did. He said he's coming this month. The last time I talked to him. So Parker, you talked to him as well. Oh no, never mind. You did not. You went down there, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, it was a
I
good
forgot.
situation.
I forgot that.
He'll be back for the spring game. At least that's the expectation,
Yes,
if
yes,
not sooner.
and supposedly he'll be back to a few practices as well. Also a good news, Legend Bay, um,
Markel Ford.
Markel Ford, and Lamont Rogers will be at the first OU spring practice on Monday. Correct?
That is correct.
Yep, that's big. Lamont Rogers is one of OU's top targets. I still think Ty Haywood will be at a practice or two in the near future. I know for a fact that several of the OU commits will be on hand. Obviously, Amarian Robinson will be in town this weekend. Trent Wilson will be in town this weekend. And Tanook Hines, 4-star wide receiver out of Decaney High School, will be in town this weekend as well as far as 25 class goes. And then 26 class, there's a bunch of 4-star top 250 kids that'll be in town for the future of 50. We've got that whole list for you on OU Insider VIP. All right, real quickly, basketball, Parker. Does OU beat Texas in Austin this weekend?
I think it
Let's say
depends on
if yeah, let's say he's healthy.
if they've got Javian McCollum. Yes. If they do not
Okay,
have Javian McCollum, no. I think it's that simple.
agreed. Does Trent Williams have OU in his top 2 after the visit this weekend? I say yes.
Trent Wilson, you mean?
Wilson, excuse me, Trent Williams. Trent Williams, that'd be great to have him back.
I was
Offensive
about to
tackle.
say, he got
People would be like,
eligibility
hell yeah, you
left.
got 4 more years. Yeah, Trent Wilson. I say
No,
yes.
no knock on Michael Tarquin, but I think you'd feel a little better with Trent Williams at offensive tackle.
Agreed. Does Trent Wilson have OU in his top 2 with Penn State probably being the leader? I think I
I'll
agree.
bet you.
Yes.
I'll bet you
Yep.
does.
Yep.
I'll
Agreed.
bet you the visit goes well this weekend.
Does Amarian Robinson, does he change some things up and show up to the Champion Barbecue after this weekend with his parents on hand? Because last time he showed up to him, I think so. I won't say he does that, but I think Oklahoma makes a big, big push at that point. I don't think they're going to get a commitment or anything like that, but I do think they make that resurgence once again.
I think it's within the realm of possibility, but I would say the likelihood is that Amarian Robinson just says, "Hey, let me come the weekend of June 14th. Let me come with Floyd Bacard and whatever other guys are going to be being that weekend out because he's got the Oregon OV set for June 21st, and
But does it
like
matter? Because the Champion Barbecue is they do the exact same thing. They just call it, that's their big weekend to have, instead of 10 guys, they're going to have 15 guys on campus, and that's
yeah,
Champion
I
Barbecue.
think
But they do the same thing every weekend.
I think you'll take your chances with Amarian Robinson, regardless of when the official visit takes place,
Right.
especially with the knowledge that you got a great shot with Marcus Wimberly. So you don't necessarily have all your eggs in the Amarian Robinson basket, nor do they all need to be.
With the room, the way it's set up, and I want people to understand this, like if OU strikes out on Amari Robinson and let's say Mate Tagawai and Jonah Williams, let's say they miss out on all 3 of those and end up with Marcus Wimberly. One, that's still a really good get. 2, you don't need to get a 5-star every year. That'd be great. But Bama didn't even get 5 stars at every position every year. I mean, B Hall's got to stop getting top 50 kids, at some point. He's got to, stop getting those guys. But I think the room is so stacked that he's done such a good job building it up that I don't, I guess my point is that getting the number 1 guy or missing on the number 1 guy isn't going to ruin that room. It's so young and so talented. He's kind of set for like the next few, and then as long as he can score in 2026 and get one of the best safeties in the country in 26, he's going to be all right. That's my opinion on it. So I don't think anybody's going to hate on Brandon Hall and his recruiting after what he's done the last 3 years. So, anyways, all right, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. If you're not a member of OU Insider, go there right now. Like I said, there is so much that we have going on. We've got all the report. We talked about weight with a few of the guys. I got quotes. I got like interesting stuff on so many guys with the weights. We've got all sorts of takes from today. We've got, what else was there, Parker? We've got obviously the camp coming up where we're going to have tons of interviews from OU's top targets. We've got interviews coming up with OU's top visitors from the future freaks this weekend. So there's probably going to be about 50 different interviews done over the next. Plus 7-on-7 is going to be taking place over the next few weeks, and it continues to happen. We continue to go to all these 7-on-7 events. Parker was in Houston. I was in Tulsa. I'll be in Tulsa again next week at the DR7, which will have, let's just put it this way. There will be a team that will have Deshaun Brame, Nate Roberts, Jaden Nickens, Elijah Thomas, and a couple other of those on one team. That'll be one team. So if you want to go up there and watch them, go for it. They will be up there at, I think it's, what is it, the Nine House or whatever park, community park in Broken Arrows where that's taking
Yes.
place. And so Nine House. So it's a huge, there'll be top teams from all over the country. There'll be OU targets. OU offers from all over the country that'll be there as well. Parker and I will be at that event most likely. I will be there 100% because my kid's playing in it. But
Which weekend is it?
that's next weekend.
Like as
That's
in
the 13th, 14th, or whatever it is, the 16th, 17th, or whatever, right before spring break.
tracking.
So, and then I will be going down to Arkansas to talk to Marion Robinson again. So we will have so many interviews, so much coverage of that, of spring practice. I mean, come on, interviews, post practice interviews, all that, our notes, our takeaways from what we get, because we get you normally. We get a couple of times a week or a couple of practices a week. We'll get 45 minutes to an hour viewing of the practice, and we'll give your takeaways on that. All that will be on OU Insider VIP plus basketball, softball coverage, all of that. Our chat Q&As. You can talk to Parker and I every day if you go to OU Insider VIP. It is awesome. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of OU fans on there right now, just talking, mingling, doing their thing. It's fun with all the notes that we bring up too. So go there, join $9.99 a month or $99.95 will get you a whole year, get you all the way through the first season of the SEC. So you get all the coverage, all the visits, all the commitments, all that if you go to OU Insider VIP right now. Or you can just go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel, which we would like you to do both if you can, because we'll have all sorts of content over the next few weeks. As you said, softball, basketball, baseball, spring football, all the camp stuff, all the 7-on-7 stuff, all will be right here. So make sure you subscribe. All right, that's going to do it for the version of the Insider YouTube Live. For Parker Thune, for Spencer Forsythe, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed night.